Welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast, the horror movie podcast that boils and ghouls and dead alike are screaming for. Don't be afraid to listen as Rick and the Creeps bore their way into your brains, slither down onto your arteries, into your still beating hearts.
Hi, welcome to the Ear for Fear podcast. This is the podcast that talks about scary movies or movies trying to be scary. Got a few guests in the house today. We got Morris, one of the creeps.
Hey, man.
Monster Movie Man 13. I better throw that out because I will forget. And we got a treat here. We got BoogeyMan Ben.
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, thank you.
Hey, man, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
So Boogeyman Ben is calling us. Are you live in Concord? Concord.
Yeah,
No?
I live in. It's funny. I'm in Pinole right now. I'm at my mom's house because I was helping her with stuff. But I was born in Richmond, grew up in Pinole, and I live in Concord now.
All right.
Oh, sweet.
So, and this is our first time doing like a call-in. So yeah, it's kind of like a trial and error, and I'm kind of excited about it. But thanks for joining us, man. Let's try to give a little background. We were following Ben on Instagram, or you were?
No, I'm following on YouTube.
Yeah,
YouTube. Probably maybe 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
I first found you on YouTube. I was following you and Mr. Parka from Screaming Toilet. A lot of my favorite YouTube channels I'll subscribe to, and then I see all your updates. Yeah, I get the little notification, and yeah, man, I love your videos and a lot of things, the way you feel about horror and me and the way I do too align. So watching your videos were fun. So yeah, and then I told Rick about them.
Yes, and I think you ran it. Last year's Creature Con, you ran into him, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And then
It was like a sticker with the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. We were giving out stickers for the podcast.
I have it on my door to my room.
Oh, nice,
right on.
nice.
Yeah.
And then we saw him again at this year's Sinister Con here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I had never met him, and then I think you guys were in line to get an autograph from Bill Moseley,
Yep.
and I rolled on up and we started chatting, and it was like we known each other forever.
Totally.
Yeah, it was cool, man.
Spirit.
Yeah, I mean, we all seem to kind of have similar, I guess, I don't know, opinions as to horror. And so, and then we were talking about doing this episode. I'm like, hell, let's reach out to Ben and see if he's willing.
Nice.
And here you are, man.
No, it's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah,
it's
thank you
on
for
our end.
coming
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. We're excited to have you, man. So before today we're gonna do a top 5 of 1980. So 1980 horror movies that are top 5. It doesn't mean it's
Our personal favorites.
yeah, our personal favorites. So top 5 of 1980. But before we jump into that, man, what I like to do is when we have a first-time guest, we like to ask them questions. And you didn't know that we were going to do this, so we're springing this on you.
Oh, all right.
Nothing. It's like I said, it's nothing too crazy, man. You don't have to take out a pen and start listing every state in the U.S. and their
Nothing
capital. Nothing.
painful.
It's nothing like that. It's all horror related, and it allows our audience to kind of get an idea of who you are. So it's pretty painless, man. So,
Okay.
So question number 1. This is where I should have an intro where it's like 1. Anyways, what is your all-time favorite horror film?
Salem's Lot from 1979.
Nice.
That'll always be my favorite. That, just to give a little, I did do a kind of a mini documentary, I'd like to call it, because I was in the town where they filmed it, in the area where they filmed the exterior locations, primarily Humboldt and like Arcata. Not Arcata, but Fortuna, Eureka, and Ferndale. And just pretty much gave a history about the film. But it was so much fun putting that together. I got to pretty much visit every location that's there. And it's one of those films that it's the first film that ever terrified me. And it was, I avoided for a number of years. I saw it when it aired. So I was 5 years old.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, and November 24th of 1979 was when the second part of the miniseries aired, and I watched that one. I didn't see part one, but it scared me so bad, and I just for years I never wanted to see it again. And then as I got a little older, it started showing up on like cable television, the condensed version, the 2 hour, 111-minute version, and I just got hooked by it. And at that point, I'd seen some other horror films, so I think at that point I was more prepared. But as a little kid, not knowing what I was going into and seeing children as vampires really just
Yeah,
did it.
yeah.
Totally creepy.
Movie, in my opinion. I mean, I know for some people it's a slow burn, especially the nearly 4 hour miniseries. But for me, it's just like chicken soup. It's something that I can put on, and it never gets old.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a few of those movies. Yes.
Yeah. You know what's funny, Ben, is back when it first aired on TV. If it was November, I had to have been 10. So my parents let me watch it the first night it was on TV, and I watched that first total night of, and then when the second part came on, I want to say they were watching something else and they wouldn't switch over the TV. And this is before the advent of VHS that was more accessible in our house. We didn't buy a VHS player until I think 80 or 81. So I never did get to see that second part until it was years later on VHS.
I didn't see the first part until I was a little. Well, again, I saw the movie. When they called it the movie, I saw moments of the first part because they condensed it pretty significantly.
Right.
I saw the full miniseries, like from start to finish, when I was about 11. That's when I saw the thing. So it took a while for me to actually see the whole thing.
What's funny is I remember watching it when I was a kid, and it scared the crap out of me too. Yeah. And I had went years. In fact, I couldn't even tell you the last time I watched it, and I had recently realized I didn't own it, so I went and bought it on Blu-ray, and and this was maybe a week or two ago, and I haven't watched it since I bought it, but I'm kind of like saving it, kind of hoping to watch it here soon, but it's been a long time since I've watched it. Yeah. But I remember as a kid, it scared the crap out of me.
It disappointed me that I never was able to finish it. I don't think I finished it until like 85 when it was in that Warner Brothers big old clamshell VHS. And I rented it from a mom and pop store, and I actually got to see the rest of it. So that always kind of disappointed me.
Yeah, we rented it all the time because that's when my dad started taking me to video stores, and I'm going to say like 84, 85. That's when I started seeing it. And I actually have one of if you knew how many copies of it I have.
I bet you
I can
have
imagine.
I have it on disc, I have it on Blu-ray, I have it on DVD, I have it on VHS, I have it on beta, I have it digital, I have a copy from overseas. I have pretty much everything.
Do you have a laser disc? Is there a big laser disc of it?
I don't have a player, but I bought the laser disc.
Oh yeah.
And framed it. So I was like, so it's not even opened. I just put it in a frame because I'm like, well, I'm never gonna laser disc player, but I heard they look great. I remember watching them in film school, laser discs. Like, nice. I remember seeing in film school, but I never owned one.
Yeah. Now was that? Do you remember? Was that the first horror movie you saw, or do you remember the first one you ever watched?
I remember watching it. My mom and I used to watch John Stanley's Creature Features back when I was probably 4. It used to come on Channel 2, I believe at 11 o'clock. Again, I was really young, but I just remember we had this, and I talk about it in that video when I talk about Salem's Lot. We had these gold couches. I remember we had, because 70s, like 78.
Oh yeah.
So we had like these 2 gold couches. One was kind of like an L-shaped, and one was just like a regular couch. And I remember my mom and I would lay on the couch and watch TV. And she said one time she woke up and she's like, Ben, what are you watching? Twisted Brain. I still remember saying that. And I was watching this movie, and I still don't remember a lot about it, but I remember it was a very eerie, weird movie. But I always remember the intro to Creature Features, and I remember John Stanley, Bob Wilkins. I remember watching those. So I think I had seen, and at that time I was really big into the Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was kind of like my launching in terms of, I was fascinated by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so that's why I really got into the Hulk. And But again, as a kid, my biggest thing was that I always felt like children were safe. And I think that's why Salem's Lot put me over the edge, because I always felt like everything I had been watching was with adults.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, there's no kids being hurt, or, you know, even as it's weird, your kid logic when you're a kid. And I just remember always thinking, oh, children are safe. And then seeing Salem's Lot, seeing Ralphie and Dave, like, turn into vampires, gruesome vampires. I think that's what really got me in that movie. But I had watched, like, I think I remember seeing like the Wolfman. I used to have my mom buy me like magazines and books with monsters on them. I was a big Halloween person, like the season of Halloween.
Oh yeah.
That was my favorite. You know, my first Halloween, I was 6 months old, and my grandmother always shows me this picture of me with this jack-o'-lantern laughing. And I think I did use that picture in my video. Nice. Because and I always liked to dress up. When I was 4, I was the Hulk for Halloween. So it's like, I was Dracula when I was 5. So, and my grandmother's the one that told us to watch Salem's Lot, because she had watched part 1, and she told us the night that part 2 aired, she said, oh, I watched this part last week, and it really scared me. You and Ben should watch it. And so my mom and I watched it, not knowing what we were getting into. and so I always say that my grandmother is the one that got me into horror movies, because my mom and my grandfather couldn't stand it, but my grandmother would watch them.
That's
but yeah, I did monsters. That was a long-winded answer, but
that's okay.
I did like monsters. I was already into them, and I was always sort of fascinated by them, especially like the jack-o'-lanterns was probably my first thing that I remember being drawn to as a kid. Nice. So started pretty early.
Do you feel like were you like this were immediately hooked with the whole like kind of genre, or did it take a little bit of time for you to kind of, you know, to really like it, to really enjoy it, you know? Because I know with me, like, I remember seeing a few when I was younger, and it did a little bit of damage to me, and then it took a little time for me to come back to it. And then once I did, it was all over. It was, you know, I never looked back. But like, I remember seeing, you know, the original Halloween one night when we were being babysat, and I thought someone was underneath the bed the entire night. I didn't sleep at all, and I just, you know, little things like that I remember. And so it took me a little bit to come back to it. You know, was it immediate, and was it just like nonstop ever since, or did it, you know?
I can remember a few things. So Salem's Lot scarred me for a few years, but the whole thing was that, like, the beginning of the next year, The Shining came out. Mm-hmm. So I remember that television commercial. It was the scene in The Shining where Nicholson is sort of, after the incident with Halloran, he kind of comes into camera frame, you know, and I remember that was part of the commercial. And every time that would air, that commercial would come, I would dive behind my mom's couch because I didn't see Jack Nicholson. For years, I was terrified of Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
So the other thing I remember is, like I said, I still was fascinated by monsters, and I think a lot of it had to do with, like, I loved Scooby-Doo. I loved those films. And I was my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoon is called Hyde and Hare with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah,
so
I remember that one. Yeah.
I loved him changing into the green monster, and
Nice.
So I was fascinated by that stuff even after Salem's Lot. So, but then I got into harder stuff. Like I remember going to see The Fun House, another Tobe Hooper film in 1991.
That's one of Morris's favorites.
In the theater. I saw that in the theater. I remember the poster with the mouth. And I remember seeing that, and my friend Tori and my mom and his mom, and I think it was my friend Tori's sister. We all went to see it at some theater in Oakland. And I remember seeing that and being terrified by Gunther, the character that Wayne Doba played. Mm-hmm. That terrified me. And the same year, my dad took me to see American Werewolf in London.
Oh,
now,
nice.
I was 7. And so I was set. Yeah, I would have been 7 at the time. Oh my God. I still remember that terrified me to my core, especially the werewolf design. And I just remember sleeping in my bed that night at my dad's house. And I remember I got there, and I had a waterbed because this was 1981. But I remember I was staring up at the ceiling because I wouldn't look at the doorway to my bedroom because I was scared that if I looked down, I was going to see the werewolf. I just remember that whole time. And I think my dad said I could stay in his room, but that movie, and he kept saying, and the whole time I remember I had my hand over my face through most of it. And my dad's like, you wanted to watch this? I was like,
Yeah.
again, I'm 7. It's like, because it came out in August of 1981. So yeah, but so I think that's what kind of eased me into it. And by the time I really got comfortable with revisiting Salem's Lot, it was the following year, and then Creepshow also came out that year. That was because we're hitting the 40th anniversary of that in November.
Yeah.
It was, and I think at that point, then I got a balance for it. It's like then it was kind of like I was always curious, but I've always been more drawn to, like, there's some horror films out there to this day that I don't care to watch because I've always been more fascinated by the monsters instead of like the tortures that people will do to each other.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I mean, when you get into Friday the 13th and Michael Myers on Halloween and stuff like that, again, they're fictitious. They're monsters. They're characters that have survived impossible executions and come back. So for me, those were always, even though they're technically, at least for the first 3 Friday the 13th, Jason was a person, and then he became zombie or whatever you want to call him. But for the most part, it was always, there was a fantasy element to it. And I think that's why, as much as it scared me, I could always say, well, that's not real.
Yep.
You get into some stuff that has become more popular in the last 20 years. There's things that I think just push the envelope too much for me. But I've always been more interested in, like, the monsters, like the werewolves, the vampires, the mass killers that are impossible to kill. Those are the ones that draw me the most. Yeah.
I would agree with that. I'm like that as well. I am a huge fan of ghost stories and stuff, and that always been one of my favorites. I love that kind of subgenre is the ghost stuff always just creeps me out. Like, and I always enjoy, like, a new way for them to kind of get me, even though I know something's coming. It's, and they still find a way to scare me. And that's what I love about it, But let's see. How about this one? As a kid, did you ever say Bloody Mary in front of a mirror?
I never did. And to this day, I will never say Candyman. No, I will never say it. Things like that and it's funny, my wife always talks about that, the Bloody Mary thing, and I said, I've never, no. It's like, it wasn't something I grew up with, or I just wasn't, I don't know, it was something that I kind of knew about as I got older, but as a kid, no, I didn't.
I remember standing in, this was at my grandparents' house, and I remember, like, I think my cousins were there, and I was like, okay, let's do it. We're just going to do it. And we go into this bathroom, I think it was upstairs, and we went to do it, and the lights were off, and I chickened out. I'm like, I can't do it.
Dude, I remember doing that with at school with kids, and this is grade school, probably anywhere from like 76, 77, 78. We used to go into the bathroom and do that as little kids. And, there would be probably like 10 of us, and we were all looking at the mirror going, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And then someone would turn off the lights, and then we're all screaming, running out of the bathroom. And then the hall monitor, it's usually like a lady that's a mother that's doing that's donating her time doing
like that. A volunteer.
Like a volunteer, that's what I meant to say. And they're like, what are you kids doing? Knock it off. Yelling at us. And we do it at different times of the, maybe we'll do it like a few weeks later, the same thing, and going out screaming because we're afraid that Bloody Mary was going to come.
I never could finish it. Was it 3 times or 5 times?
For Bloody Mary, it was 3 times.
It was 3 times, but Candyman was 5. Yeah, I always forget that. Yeah. That's 5. That's so funny. Yeah. How about this? Would you ever buy a doll that you knew was haunted?
No.
I agree with you 1,000,000%.
Me too.
No way I'm doing it.
No, it's funny. One time we were cleaning out I think it was a storage unit, and my wife had these, it was like dolls that she was given when she was a kid. And I was looking at them. I'm like, these are more terrifying than anything that I've seen that I buy. It was just these weird baby dolls with these twisted looking faces. And I'm like, how did this provide you? These things are hideous. Like, we're gonna set these on fire. These are scary stuff. So yeah, those are the things. Those things I'm like, no, they can stay out of my house because I don't want something. It's like, something like that in my home.
No way, man. Those older dolls, older
Yeah.
dolls, like the ceramic one. My mom has some of the ceramic ones. I think they're ceramic or, and they're creepy, and they always put those in horror movies.
Oh, yeah.
Weren't they in Morris? Weren't they in the incident in Ghostland? Wasn't the whole house riddled with those?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've only seen the movie once, but that movie really got me.
Yes, that one got me too. But they have those dolls everywhere, and then they try to make the women look like the dolls. No, dolls are just creepy. No way I'm buying anything haunted. The thing is, it's like I know most of these movies we watch, the stuff isn't real. I know it is. I know it's not. But I'm like, I'm not taking a chance. It ain't happening. If I know this thing is haunted and someone says it's haunted, I'm not buying that.
Oh hell no.
So how about this, Ben? How about, do you remember what was the worst nightmare you ever had as a child or an adult? Like anything that it could be a reoccurring dream or something that just, you had it and it never left you.
The one I remember, and it's actually funny, I tried to write a story about this at one time because I did take screenwriting, and I was trying to come up with a way to tell this story, and maybe one day I will. I'm actually trying to write something now regarding Salem's Lot and just my experiences with that film. But what I remember, this one dream, I used to have this toy box, and it had like had a train on it, and it was orange and yellow. And in fact, my mom still has it in the garage in the house I'm at right now. But it's like, I remember it had like a train on it. And I remember, I don't know how, I think one time we had gone to Arizona and I'd seen like in Creepshow 2, Old Chief Woodenhead, I'd seen like a store Indian, one of those giant Indians outside of a general store or something. So I had this dream, and in our old apartment, there was so you would walk in, and my bedroom was right to the right immediately. And it was kind of like a room that was probably an office, because this was a condo that was built in like the 60s. So it was like a small little office, had a sliding door and a bedroom door. And if you slid the door open, my bed was all the way to the wall. And in this dream, it was like my mom had fallen. I was pretty young. I think I probably was, again, 4 or 5 when I had this nightmare. Because I think I was 4 when we had gone to Arizona. So I had been about 5 years old. So I dreamt that I woke up, got out of bed, and I was standing in the hallway between the door, the sliding door, and the kitchen. And the toy box was somehow in that hallway with me. And that cigar store Indian jumped out of it and grabbed me.
Oh my God.
And threw me over his shoulder. And there was almost like stairs in it. So there were stairs in the toy box.
Oh no.
Walking me down the stairs into this blackness. And I'm yelling, hitting him and trying to wake my mom up, and no one's coming for me. And then I would wake up.
Oh,
that's the one
damn.
I'll never forget.
That's creepy, man. You got to get that as a story. You got to write that down.
Totally.
You trying to, because it's that's like the payoff to the story. So I'm like, what do you do to build it up to that? So that's what I would always run into.
Yeah.
But I thought about doing a story called The Toy Box or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, and that sounds dirty. So I'm like, going, okay, it's like, what can I do? The other nightmare I had was the night I saw Salem's Lot, and I dreamt that I was in the root cellar with the vampires. I woke up, I was laying on the ground by Barlow's casket, and the other vampires that are trying to come out of the root cellar at the end of the movie were coming towards me and grabbing me. And I just remember that one. Those are the 2 dreams, the 2 nightmares that I'll never forget.
Yeah. I hate those. I have a few reoccurring ones that just periodically I will have them, and they mess with me, and I know it's some underlining thing that happened to me when I was younger or whatever it is, and I just, and it could be months, it could be years, and all of a sudden I have it again, and it messes with me. And I think we all have something like that.
Dude, I have my recurring nightmare is it's apocalyptic. I'm alone. There's no survivors, or I'm looking for survivors. It's desolate, empty streets, but it's my old neighborhood in South San Francisco, and each street is just empty. There's no cars. It's just houses. no visible anybody, but there's like random faceless zombies or faceless people that are after me, and I'm like sneaking through yards and hiding behind fences and going into garages and going up in attics, and they're like coming into the house and looking for me, but they have like no face. There's no eyes, nose, or mouth. And I remember being terrified by Westworld when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
with the
Yul Brynner.
And even
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And then even the $6 Million Man, the Steve Austin and the one the android with the removable face.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So anything with removing of the face, that always terrified me. I think I brought it into my nightmares.
Yeah, he did.
Funny.
You have that it's reoccurring for
Dude,
you?
and I'll have it once a year.
Oh man.
Wow.
It hits me every once in a while, and even though I'm old man now, it's like it's crazy the nightmare is so real. I feel like I'm in that world that where we're existing now doesn't exist. It's not. And then when I wake up, I'm so relieved that it was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll skip a year. But yeah, it's happened ever since I was.
That's pretty crazy. It comes back every so often.
And I know it's got something's telling me that something's after me.
The one I have, and I think I mentioned this before, and I'm not going to bore anyone, but it's this, and I'm pretty positive it has to do with the fact that I blew off this class in high school. But I have this several times a year that I'm in high school. I can't remember my locker combination, so I can't get any of my books. There's a class that I've literally skipped every single day the entire year, but then I have to show up to take the final. Well, I've never been at school. I haven't been in this class all year. I've literally blown it off.
Or have a term paper you have to turn in.
Not a term paper.
That's mine.
Yeah. And I know, I have it all the time, and it could be like a different variation of it, but it's always I cannot figure out my locker combination, so I can't get any of my books. I go to this class, and I feel like I'm supposed to just know everything that's happened through the semester or through the whole school year, and I am like, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh my God. And I know it's because in my sophomore year I blew off this presentation. I blew it off and to go camping, and I know it's haunting me, and and I've had it ever since, and that's been maybe 16 or 17. So it's been 30 odd years, and I have it I have it several times a year, and I get. Yeah, and it's just like, and it just will not. I'm like, I should have just did the stupid presentation, and this wouldn't be haunting me forever. So yeah, but anyways, last question, man. In your opinion, what do you believe is the worst way to die?
Worst way to die.
Yeah.
I think I'm terrified of the ocean, and I'm terrified of sharks. I think Jaws scarred me because I refuse to go in the ocean.
Yep.
And so I think being eaten by a shark is probably the most terrifying and worst way to die, in my opinion, because like you couldn't catch me dead in the ocean. It's like I don't even like to swim. Like if it's not a pool, I'm not going. It's like it's just one of those things. You don't know what's under the water, and I think that's more scary than anything. So it's like I'm gonna stick with that, being eaten by a shark.
Yeah, that's dude. It's so funny, Ben, that you say this, because I've had this conversation with I don't know how many different friends and family members. I don't like going in the water. I don't like going underneath the water, and I know it's two things. I know Jaws did total damage to me, and then I don't know, the only thing I can think of is I was roughhousing with someone back when I was in like my teens, and they dunked me under the water, and I thought I was going to drown. And to this day, I don't like going in the ocean. I don't even care if it's a lake. I don't care if it's a pond. And, I always worry about what's underneath that can get me. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, sharks scare the crap out of me for sure. I think it's the idea of drowning for me. It's like, it just scares me. It's just that helplessness that, there's nothing you can do about it, Yeah. What about you, Morris? Anything?
Suffocating.
Suffocating. Yeah.
Like either being drowning and being aware that I'm drowning, or being buried alive, or being burned to death.
Oh God, that's horrible.
Those are the three that ring true to me that are absolutely terrifying ways to die.
Yeah.
Burning to death. I mean, always for some reason, it always makes me sad when Paul Walker passed away. And
Oh yeah,
that horrible car crash. But they said that he burned to death pretty much from the accident, and I just always remember that bothers me so much still. And he died in 2013, so it's like, but it's still to this day that idea.
Oh, yeah.
And he was such a nice guy from what I heard.
That's what I heard too. Yeah, I know. Terrible
person. That breaks my heart.
Yeah. Well, you survived the questions, man. I told you they weren't too hard.
Yeah, I hope I answered them. Okay, I know I got a little long-winded.
No, definitely. I love that. The reason for them is to kind of get the idea of of what you like and why you like it and how you're wired, and that's perfect. So there's no such thing as long-winded.
Yeah.
We go down rabbit holes on this podcast.
Oh,
if you feel free to go down any rabbit hole you want, we will entertain it.
Well, I knew Ben and I were aligned the fact that he loved creature features because I grew up with Bob Wilkinson creature features, and my first film was from creature features, staying up late with my sister and my mom after my dad went to his graveyard shift. And very first movie was Night of the Living Dead, and it was either 73 or 74, which put me either at 4 or 5. So
God.
Yeah, but I think I was wired from the get-go to be
I know. I think you were.
Yeah.
There's some people like me, I think, that took a little bit, and but no, you absolutely have no doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
So all right. Well, I guess that's that. Let's talk our top 5 from 1980. I am curious. I have a feeling that we're going to have some duplicates, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And we'll start. I guess I'll start it off. And I'll go from 5 down to 1.
Are we doing some honorable mentions first?
We'll do some honorable. I can do my honorable mentions if you guys have a couple. What we'll do is I'll go my 5th one, and then Morris, you can go your 5th, and then Ben, you can go your 5th, and then we'll talk a little bit. We'll talk about it and then we'll go 4. But I'll tell you my two. I only did 2 honorable mentions. Now we could have done more for sure, but I figured we didn't want to go more than 2. Motel Hell and Terror Train was my honorable mentions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and I will tell you a quick story on Motel Hell. My mom for some reason took me to the drive-in to see Motel Hell. And I would have been, I was born in 71, so that would have made me maybe 8, I think, at the time. Yeah. And I remember that scaring the crap out of me. And and I know a lot of people don't care for Motel Hell. It's more of kind of like a cult movie. But that one always kind of resonated with me.
Wait, isn't Motel Hell 80?
Yeah,
oh, that's right. Never mind.
Yeah, so
80.
Yeah,
what did you think we were doing?
No, I thought you said 78. Oh my god.
No, I was born in 71.
Okay, I heard 70s.
And
oh my
then
god, my brain.
And of course my birthday isn't until later in the year, so I think I would have been about 8.
Yeah.
And I remember us at the drive-in in probably the back of I don't know, And then Terror Train, I don't have a big story. It's just, hey, look, Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And
my God.
So any do you guys want to do your honorable mentions?
Yeah, dude, I have way too many.
Well, do 2.
I'll do 2. Let's see. Let's see. Probably Prom Night. I love Prom Night. Even though I know it's boring in parts. There's definitely some boring parts. I love Alligator. City of the Living Dead or
The Gates of Hell.
Gates of Hell.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
I could go on and on, say The Fog or Fade to Black.
Wow, so The Fog didn't make your top 5.
It didn't.
I am actually super surprised
Are
right now.
you?
I am. Yeah. I am.
That's funny.
I would think The Fog would absolutely make it, but that's okay. Now I'm curious.
Fade to Black's another one.
People likes.
What was that, Ben?
I said I like when people have different
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Any honorable mentions? Maybe a couple honorable mentions that didn't make your top 5?
Motel Hell is one for me. And again, it's not a movie I've seen a ton of. I actually just found I found the Scream Factory release at Walmart of all places, nice. Right in April. I just haven't revisited it, but I always liked it and the iconic, the pig head and the chainsaw. The fact that her name was Nancy Parsons, she was in the Porky's movies, and I just remember her.
Yes.
She was Ballbricker, and I remember her from those. first seeing her, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. And then, it's just such a different, weird movie. But I always have been fascinated by, I guess, because I love Psycho so much.
Yeah.
And Vacancy is another movie that I like. And it's like anything with like a weird kind of isolated motel and,
for sure.
Some weird things going on. The other one for me is The Changeling with George C. Scott.
Oh man, yeah. So that did make your top 5. This is so cool because Changeling, I'll tell you right off the bat, is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and so I just we'll just leave it at that. But
Just to give a little caveat to some of these, like for me, 1980, I was still really young because I turned 6. So there's 3 of the movies that I'm going to talk about that I have pretty much they're just perfect to me, and they're in my top 5. But a lot of the stuff from 1980 was more obscure that I'm kind of discovering now. And then in 1981, 1982, that's when I really started getting into the horror more. So I had to talk about. So with the 1980 ones, when I was going through and going, okay, I know these movies came out in 1980, and then there was some other ones going, okay, I haven't seen that one that many times. So maybe I've seen it once or twice. So like with Motel Hell, I've seen like twice. I've seen The Changeling only once. Yeah. So again, it's one of those ones but I loved them, but so I can't put them in my top 5 because they're ones that I haven't revisited as much as the other ones.
I get it. Yeah.
Rick and I always talk about the golden year for the slasher movie, which was 1981. So, that's the most and the best of the slashers.
Yeah.
81, 82 are great years.
Definitely. I mean, for me, up to like, I don't know, I'd say maybe 86 for me, and then they started, and it was like, so it's like they just had a great run of just horror movies as a whole, and being at that age in around that time, then some of them again they mean more to me, I think. So, all right. So without further ado, let's go. I'll go with my number 5, and I wonder if Morris even knows if this is going to be my number 5. But it's a Mother's Day.
I knew it.
Mother's Day is number. It was tough for me because again, I was thinking about this. I did the honorable mentions with Motel Hell and Terror Train, and I like those two. But Mother's Day is a movie I've watched more than those, and I know it's not like this well-made movie. I know it's not, but I think that's the charm for me.
Right.
It's directed by Charles Kaufman, of course, is the brother of Lloyd Kaufman, and who co-founder of Troma. And it's just, I think I just love the idea of these 3 women, these 3 friends, doing this kind of yearly trip for them, and then all hell breaking loose with these backwoods, brothers, and then trying to figure out how to get away, or and so it has to me, it has like some cheesy campiness to it, but at the same time, I think there's elements that are just well made in the movie.
I think for that movie, it's kind of a blending of, it obviously has like a Troma feel to it, but at the same time, it's kind of like it's a woman's version of the Deliverance with a little bit of sprinkling of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
A little bit, yeah. And so that's again, we're not going to go way in each one, but that one was the hardest of my 5. The other 4 were pretty easy. So Morris, what's your number 5? Hold on, let's do a little drum beat. Okay. No, I'm just kidding.
So my number 5 is a movie that I rented in 81. So it had already been out for a year, and rented at the local mom and pop store that was also / a Radio Shack. They had a Radio Shack, and I want to say it was in Millbrae. Yeah, I think it was in Millbrae or Burlingame, because I lived in South San Francisco. So, back then, man, they had like maybe 50 movies on a wall, and 10 of those were horror movies. Phantasm was one of them. Tourist Trap was another. Maniac, I think, was another. And anyway, so this movie was in just like the Salem's Lot, the big, Warner Brothers clamshell.
Yeah.
And this was the Barbara Peters, Roger Corman produced Humanoids from the Deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Humanoids. Yep.
I love the movie. It's so cheesy. They try to play it straight,
Yeah.
But it's all freaking cheesy. It has that charm that I loved watching, because I saw, the Horror at Party Beach on Creature Features, and it's got those, cheesy costumes, but they kind of are effective at the same time. They're Fishman, and my favorite Universal monster is Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I love it. It's cheesy, it's bloody, it's sleazy. And the story's not bad, but that's
what's funny is I watched that recently, and I'm not surprised that is in your top 5. I'm not, just because how much I know you. And that was almost going to make one of my honorable mentions, but I was like, well, I don't think I liked it as much as the other ones, and so no, I'm not surprised at all.
And I've probably seen it, if I had to guess, at least 20, 25 times in my life. So, it's one that I've seen a lot, so it had to be in the top 5.
Yeah. What about you, Ben? What do you got for us?
Mine is one that I kind of, it's one I saw pieces of when I was younger, but I really got into it recently, and some friends of mine did I don't know if you guys listened to Forever Midnight, but they just covered it on their podcast. Okay. It's Alligator.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Alligator, yeah.
The Louis Teague, who I'm a big fan of from Cujo. I think fantastic film, and also it starred one of my favorite actors who passed away a few years ago, Robert Forster. So that one, and I just love it's such a, it's funny. It's a very, it's a film that, the subject matter, if handled by the wrong people, could have really come across bad, but I think it was handled with a lot of respect. And again, it's a creature movie, something that's eating people, and like the whole, baby alligator that's in the sewer, and it's living off of dogs injected with hormones. I mean, that's what it becomes, this giant beast. And I don't know, I just really thought it was fun and gory, and it's just another one of those like creature movies that I really got into. And I just recently bought the Scream Factory release of it, and it's a lot of fun watching it again. But like I said, I've seen pieces of it over the years and revisited it just recently, and I just had a lot of fun watching it.
It's so awesome.
I just went back to, again, liking Jaws and movies like that. It just it's just Jaws, but it's not one that just sort of played off of that. I felt like it actually it wasn't trying to mimic exactly what Jaws did, and I just think it works, and it was creepy, and I don't like anything that's eating people, so that's But so Alligator is number
5.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I saw your post on Instagram. I saw that you just bought that. I was like, and I was like, I wonder, because I knew Alligator came out in 1980. I'm like, I have a feeling it's going to be in his top 5.
I probably just gave something away, or
that's okay. No,
New York never owned, so it's like I finally bought that too on 4K.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so number 4, I guess I'll go. You want me to go for?
Yeah.
All right. So The Fog. John Carpenter's The Fog. I mean, first of all, everyone who listens knows that he's my favorite director, and so this was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
I just love it. I mean, to me it's vintage John Carpenter.
Oh, absolutely.
Tom Atkins, come on, Jamie Lee Curtis, Adrienne Barbeau. I mean, everything. Hal Holbrook. I mean, this is just I just love this idea of these, in a sense, kind of like these ghosts. I'm going to say pirates, but coming back to this town 100 years later, and you kind of screwed us, and now we're going to make you pay. And it's not everybody, of course. It's select people. Yeah. But just the idea of this, and what creeps me out to this day is anytime I'm in fog, it's the first thing that I go to. Yeah. And I start, and if I'm in the car with, like, say, one of my kids, I'm like, hey, what is that? I'm like, we shouldn't be in the fog. There's something in the fog. And I play on that, and it's just, and it's just a fun movie. It's, the music, of course, because it's John Carpenter, and it has
great music.
I mean, the soundtrack is phenomenal. And dude, like I said, I mean, the only thing that I ever thought was a little weird was the relationship between Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins.
Yeah.
I just felt like he was substantially older, and it just kind of creeped me out a little bit.
Like he was pushing 50 and she was just, barely 20.
Yeah, and it was just like that was the only thing, if there's anything. But I mean, just everything about it is just, it's awesome.
You're my daughter. You're my daughter.
Oh my God. Right. Joe Dirt. Yeah. So that was pretty easy for me. The Fog in my top 5 was a no brainer.
Dude, it's atmosphere. I mean, the atmosphere,
man, everything about it.
So great. I have a history with The Fog to where it is one of my favorite movies. It didn't make my top 5, but it would definitely be in my top 10.
Still a mention.
Yeah. It was my,
and it was on your honorable mention. Yeah. And so, So,
it's funny. I'm gonna inject something.
Yeah.
I know you did an episode with Darren on the Creep Show.
Yes,
and
yes.
and the something that tied you over. That
yes.
It always being that I've seen The Fog first, and then when I saw Creep Show, because I snuck into that movie, we bought tickets to go see The Last Unicorn. Me and my friends.
Oh my God!
And then we snuck in to go see Creep Show because it was rated R.
Yeah.
But anyway, that little portion of that of the anthology always reminded me of The Fog, especially of course, the end.
Yeah.
Just, I love that. Anyway, so me, number 4?
Yeah, your number, yeah.
Okay, let's see. My number 4 would be Sean S. Cunningham's Friday the 13th.
Wow, number 4.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, honestly, it's Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th 2, and Friday the 13th Part 4 are my favorite Friday the 13ths. It is not my favorite Friday the 13th movie. It would have to be, third on the list of my favorite Friday the 13th movies. But it is definitely one of, my number 4 of 1980. I love the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that it captures, even though it's not a camp atmosphere, it's a woods atmosphere. And I love the fact when the storm comes in and even though it's like flashing lights, from, Kevin Bacon's eyes and they have the rain come in. I love the sound of the loons, especially that area in New Jersey, New York.
Yeah.
We don't have that here in California. But I whenever I hear loons in a movie, like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, the sound of those birds, it's always creepy to me, especially in a wooded, setted area. And I love the atmosphere of Friday the 13th. And when I saw the commercial, just like you, Ben, when I saw that commercial back in, I think, 1980, they did the 1, 2, and they showed little scenes, 3, 4, they did that. And
it goes up to 13, yeah.
I saw that on TV. I'm like, fuck, I'll never watch that movie. That looks scary as fuck. I'll never see that. That looks too intense. There's a killer in the woods. It's going to kill you. And how are they going to kill you? My little, 10-year-old brain couldn't, wrap my head around that, or 11. I probably was 10 at the time because I wasn't 11 yet. But yeah, that creeped me out. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. Friday the 13th.
Yeah. I'm just surprised it's not further up your list.
No.
Huh. All right, Ben, what about your number 4?
4 for me is one that was already touched on, the Humanoids from the Deep.
Nice.
4 for me. And I think for that one, that one is just, I had heard about it. Again, I saw this one I knew about it and I'd seen clips from it, but never really watched it. And then I watched it a couple of years ago when the pandemic first happened. I remember watching it and I was just like, wow. And the fact that Vic Morrow, of course, who would pass away tragically on the Twilight Zone movie, did it. And I'm a big fan of his daughter, Jennifer Jason Leigh. So I wanted to see this because it just seemed like I knew that he had issues in his later career, and Twilight Zone was like the movie that was supposed to kind of put him back on the map and everything. And I was just curious to see him in this role, and just the I mean, of course it wasn't directed, by Corman, but he produced it and it had Corman all over it in terms of some of the over the top, situations and the gore. And again, they were creepy and just what was going on and the violations that were going on. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy that this movie came out in 1980. And I think it was just, because this wouldn't be made now.
No way.
So the ones where you go back and go, wow, they got away with this one. And I was really just fascinated by it. And it just really, it's one I've tried to buy, but it's like impossible to find. But it's one that it was a creature feature movie that just pushed things a little further. And it was so well done and so creepy. And like I said, I just loved a lot of elements that were already touched upon in terms of this one. But yeah, that's one's gonna. And I love that it was co-directed by a woman. So I think
exactly.
Peters. So it's like, I really liked it, and I just had a lot of fun with it. And it's one that I would like to own one day if I can ever find it, because I think the screen release is completely can't find it. It's sold out or completely a print. Yeah. Because they put out a steelbook of it, and I always regretted not getting the steelbook, and I've tried to find it, and it was going for like hundreds of dollars. So I'm like, okay.
Of course, yeah. These people buy them up, and then they want to sell them for some ridiculous price.
With the Halloween Kills steelbook that came out at Best Buy this past year, and they were going for like $200 the day they were supposed to come out because everybody I'm like going, I'm not paying $200 for. I like the movie, but I'm like, I'll just go buy it for $24 and just the heck with the steelbook.
Exactly. It pisses me off when people do that.
Yeah, I was just telling Rick that. I'm sorry.
No, please.
I was just telling Rick that Fright Night just became a pre-order at Best Buy, and I was waiting a couple days until payday to pull the trigger on that pre-order, and it's already sold out, and it doesn't come out until October.
Yeah,
it's already sold out.
It's already sold out. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so. If I would have known that, I would have got you one. I'm sorry, because I pre-ordered mine too.
Oh, did you?
Same situation.
Well, man, if I come across a Humanoids from the Deep, I will. I'll snag it for you at a good price.
Well, I'll pay you for it for sure. It's one that the steelbook was beautiful. The art on it was amazing. I don't know. I can't recall the artist, but I just remember really being. I said, "Oh, that's a nice release." And I looked at it like, and no, I'm not going to spend that.
Yeah, right. I know it's tough. It's tough for me. Like I won't spend too much on a movie. It's like it doesn't mean I don't love them or stuff. And it's just to me, I'm like, I don't love it that much to spend $100 or $200 for that. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But again, I know, you guys are probably more true collectors than I am when it comes to that. And so I get it, I totally get it,
Oh, my wife, it drives her nuts because she's like, how many, if you saw how many copies of Friday the 13th franchise that I have, every box set they put out, I got, and every time we release it, I get it. Same thing with like Halloween. And she's like, how many copies of these do you have?
That's Morris too.
Yeah. For the first Halloween, I probably have maybe 20, 25 different copies.
I'm like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Everywhere from the VHS to, I don't have any laser discs, but VHS, DVD, Blu-ray.
I got Salem's Lot, but I spent $80 to get it. So I was like, that was a commitment.
That's crazy. All right. Well, so number three, number three for me is The Changeling. And this, I almost moved this to number 2 because this honestly is easily one of my top 10 of all time horror movies. It's just the mood of this movie. George C. Scott, first of all, is always phenomenal in every damn movie he's in. He's always so good. The idea of this, this big kind of, mansion, and of course we always know something happens. Something's always haunted. I think that for me it was the idea of him losing his wife and his daughter at the beginning of the film, and the sorrow and just he's feeling, and then he, and he's this pianist, or he's like a kind of professor, and he teaches and all this other stuff, and then he moves into this place, and then these things are happening. He's trying to deal with the grief of losing the two things he loves the most in the world, and then he almost has this. he has to deal with this other element.
He's like thrown into this.
Yeah, like he doesn't even get the time to really mourn, and then is thrown into this other tragedy that he has to slowly kind of unravel and solve. And it's just, to me, it's creepy. There's the one scene to this day that still gets me is when he goes to throw the ball into the water and he comes back and it starts coming down the stairs. And just talking about it right now, Morris, you can see the hair. The hair on my arms are standing up. And no matter how many times I see that movie, it still gets me.
That scene.
It freaks me out, man. And just everything about it. And then the fact that as we slowly unravel what's happening and what happened to the child, and then you start to you just feel how horrible it was. You know, the fact that he was murdered and drowned, and then they passed off some other kid, you know, and it's just one of my favorites. Yeah. Oh, the seance, anything with the seance. Oh, you got me. So that's my number 3, and honestly, I could have moved it to number 2 or 1 on it. This is just for me personally, you know. So
nice.
So what's your number 3, Morris?
My number 3 is a bona fide classic, and it is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Wow, 3.
Yeah.
I know. I'm shocked here. First of all, I'm shocked that Friday the 13th was 4. Yeah.
Yeah. What can I say that hasn't already been said about The Shining? The Shining's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle of a movie because it means so many different things to so many different people, and the fact that Kubrick was a craftsman at putting these pieces together and a perfectionist. You know, every shot was meticulously planned, and man, it was just the dread from start to finish that movie has. It gets right into your soul, under your skin, into your soul. But I mean, like I said, what can I say that hasn't already been said?
Yeah.
But the way it affects me is like there's a dread that it's tragedy from the get-go, from the opening credits.
From the start of the music.
Oh yeah,
that music just really sets the tone.
It sets the tone, and the tone never lets up.
No, it doesn't at all.
It's kind of like we were talking with Hereditary. It just has that from start to finish. There's that dread that's lingering throughout the entire movie. Yeah. So it's always there. But that's my number 3.
I'm surprised it's number 3. Wow, man, you're surprising me right now. All right, so this is good stuff. What about you, Ben? What do you got for number 3?
3 for me is going to go to the original Friday the 13th.
Nice.
That's my favorite franchise, my favorite horror franchise, and my favorite character is Jason.
Nice.
It was a long time. I think as a kid, I kind of gravitated. I was a big Jason fan. Then Freddy kind of became the rock star of the horror genre, and it was kind of like as a kid, that was the more popular way to go. But then as I got older, I went back to Jason again. So, I think the first Friday the 13th for me, it's never been my favorite out of all of them. But the thing that I think works about it is the atmosphere. I think the fact that they shot at a real Boy Scout camp.
Yeah.
Camp Novi Bosco. I think the fact that they really shot at a real camp, the environment is what draws you into that movie. And I also think they have a really good cast. I mean, and I think that, you have Harry Crosby and Kevin Bacon and Adrienne King. And there's so many great people in it. And Betsy Palmer is just so I mean, she's always going to be iconic because it was against the grain. I know that there's been lots of conversations with Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham talking about, they were trying to rip off Halloween. They were trying to find a cash grab, something that because they were doing children's movies. They were trying to find something that they could do that would make them money to do the projects they really wanted to do, not thinking this was going to become what it became. And it's one of those films that I think Palmer's performance is what always draws me back to it.
Oh, yeah.
There's scenes in it, like you were talking about, Rick, the scene in The Changeling, the scene where Brenda is in the cabin and she hears, "Help me."
Oh yeah. Oh
Thing
yeah.
to this day. And then to find out that is because it really does sound like
Sound
a
like
child.
a little kid.
It does.
I don't know if that's really a child, and then
it was.
later
It was really a child. Okay, yeah.
I'm wondering if it really was, but just that voice over here,
Mhm.
over here, hear that, and what would you do in that situation?
Creepy.
You do as Brenda did, and I think that's why it's very human. The characters are very human, and
Yeah.
there were comments made about, I think Rick, you said that, as the 80s kind of drew towards like 87, 88. And if you go back and watch those Friday the 13th, as much as I love them because of, just they became gore fests or the over the top stunts that Kane Hodder would do, in terms of the humanizing of the victims, that was gone. It became more of a spectacle. Whereas in the 1980 Friday the 13th, you have real human characters. You have these people that you could relate to. Like I was that goofball, like Ed, or I was, the guy with the hot girl, like, Jack was the Kevin Bacon character. It's like, I think that's what I like about that film, the characters, the environment, and I think Palmer's performance. And that last jump scare is brilliant.
It is.
It was something that was kind of, oh, we're going to do that at the end. That was kind of something where, he said they wanted it to be like, they're playing the music, Harry Manfredini's score, and it's that beautiful, I think it's Sail Away Tiny Sparrow, and it's like they're playing that music and you think it's all over. And then that last gotcha at the moment, at the end. So many films have tried to do that. Even Friday the 13th tried to do it in the next sequel.
Mm-hmm.
But that first one is just it's so good and so pure, and it still works to this day. I still think it's terrifying. And as a kid, that scene freaked me out. And I remember my dad was watching it and he told me, "You can't watch this movie. There's a woman that gets her head cut off in it." And I still remember see that movie because this was like in 81 or whenever it was. I was little, but I remember it was, again, one of those things that when it showed up on cable, he told me about it. So again, that was a long-winded answer. But
well, see, what's awesome, Ben, is that leads to my number 2, which is exactly what you just said. Friday the 13th. That is my number 2. Because, and I could really, I'll try to piggyback, like the very ending, it's a happy accident, right? Mm-hmm. Like they were like, "What, you want us to do what?" And then it just became like this thing. And I'm probably going to go to hell, and a lot of people are going to get mad for me saying this. Look, Halloween is a phenomenal movie. And I've already said how much I love John Carpenter. But if I had to pick between the two to watch on a regular basis, I would pick Friday the 13th. Halloween is become, for me, it's become kind of the franchise as a whole has become kind of boring for me, and kind of just, I just get it over with. Now, doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy some of the movies, because I did.
But I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah, but all day long is Friday the 13th. Sure, yeah. I mean, but how many movies were they took that Halloween recipe, right? Let's do something on a low budget. Let's do this, and this, and we're going to make a lot of money. Well, sure, you could say Friday the 13th did that. Well, so did how many other slashers and horror movies did that? I mean, they all did that.
Oh, they did.
They still do that to this day. They still do that. You may not have that true slasher anymore, but everyone did it, and everyone still does it. It's like a thing, right? It's like, okay, whatever works, let's do that, and let's make a lot of money in the process. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the movie's awesome as a whole. Oh yeah. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. It's a great movie, and then, like you said, Betsy Palmer is phenomenal. To me, and someone would disagree, I still think it has the best kill ever with Kevin Bacon. Mm-hmm. I will put that up against any kill in any movie.
It's shocking.
And
the
you
very
tell
first
me,
time you see it,
it's still to this day, and I know how he did it and how it was made and all this stuff. It still bothers me. It's hard for me to watch it.
Yeah.
It feels so friggin' real, and it's bubbling, and it's like, oh my God. And so, yeah, I mean.
Something that Ben was saying about the movie is Friday the 13th borrowed a lot from Psycho. The music and even the premise of, one person, kind of assuming the personality of somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
And, murdering people.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I didn't even touch on the music because I'm a sucker for great music.
Yeah.
The score is phenomenal. The score is just phenomenal. I mean, and then the idea of being out in the woods, like I don't even go camping a lot these days because of that. It's like little things that we remember, water with Jaws, or you know, the woods for me. Like I've been camping, but I'd be lying if I said if I didn't go camping right now, in the back of my mind, it's like, someone going to get through my tent? What's going to happen here? You know? So number 2 for me is Friday the 13th.
Nice.
What about you, buddy Morris? What do you got, man?
Well, one that's already been discussed.
Yeah.
The Changeling.
The Changeling's number 2.
Number 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, I can't. It was tough for me, dude. I went back and forth. Like I could easily put that 1 or 2 for me.
Yeah. The Changeling is definitely one that, and it's funny too. I didn't watch it back in the 80s. I saw this when I think you had started working at Harmon.
At Harmon, yeah.
And it was I had just moved into an apartment from living with Cherie, Michelle, Cindy, and I was living by myself in the apartments where I met, Dylan's mom.
Oh yeah.
But I had I want to say I was alone. It was the little video, I don't know if you remember that little video store that was close to Safeway that was facing Marconi, but there was a little mom and pop video store there.
Okay,
and I used to go in there and rent stuff that I never always heard about but never did see. And I saw parts of The Changeling throughout the years on TV.
Yeah.
But I never did see, the whole movie. So I rented it. It was storming one night. Obviously, I lived alone. Turned it on probably at like 10 o'clock at night. Watched the whole thing. Dude, it got under my skin. And I was afraid to sleep with the lights off. And, dude, I had to have been, 23 maybe at the time. So, 22 or 23. And for me to be that old and that afraid of the dark or being alone, and the fact that it was storming out there. I remember getting like a pizza, and I had like a little, slumber party, eating, of just by myself, just watching the movie. And I think I watched some other movies too. There was another Ron Howard acted horror movie from like the 70s that was there too, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's never been released other than on VHS. But anyway, going to the movie, the things that happen in that movie, the emptiness, the fact that it plays like a mystery. He's figuring things out, but I love the quietness of the movie, and each scene is framed very, the shots are very framed rather well. The quietness of him being alone in the house. Yeah. I think that really got under my skin, and figuring things out, and his piano pieces when he's putting things together, and just how it plays out. It's beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. I could watch that movie 2-3 times a year.
I never get tired of that movie.
Never do either.
And what's funny, it's kind of like a rite of passage for my kids. Now, so Morris knows, but Ben, I have 3 kids. They're older though. I got a 31, a 27, and then 17.
Really?
I do. And what I would do is when I felt they were kind of old enough to watch it, it would be kind of like, okay, let me introduce you to the horror genre. And, and they were all kind of different. I can't remember if it was Marissa or Andrea. I want to say it was Andrea. We were watching it at the old condo that I had, and she would take the blanket. We were just kind of chilling on the couch. She was pretty young at the time, and she would take the blanket and throw it over her head. And, I don't want to see this, but then she'd pull it down because she wanted to see it. And so The Changeling is it's just, as a whole, it's just one of my all time favorites, and I just never get tired of it. I could, and anytime I can recommend it to someone who's never seen it, I'm like, what? You haven't seen this? Here, borrow this and go watch this. And every single person is like, oh my God, I can't believe I've never seen this before.
The seance scene is so effective. I think it's one of probably the best, filmed seance scenes in that I've ever seen. And it was the first movie that I had Lisa watch when we first started dating.
Oh, really?
I brought it over to her house to watch it.
There you go, man. Yeah. That's funny. All right, Ben, what about you, man? What's your number 2?
I'm going to go with The Fog, John Carpenter.
Nice. All right.
It's a very important film to me, and it's one that I saw it like probably 7 years after it came out. I saw it in '88, and I rented it from 7, 8 years after it came out. I saw it, and I rented it from the Warehouse. I don't know if you remember.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I remember the Warehouse. Oh man, we're dating ourselves here.
But I just remember my mom saying, "Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is in this. You like Halloween? You should watch this one." And I was also a big fan of Psycho, and Janet Leigh's in it.
Yes.
And I always think about the fact that I've actually was able to meet 3 people from the film. I met Adrienne Barbeau. I've met Janet Leigh. I met Tom Atkins. So
you met Tom Atkins, you bastard.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Minister Green 2017 when it was in Stockton.
Oh, nice.
And very, very nice. That was a big one. Janet Leigh was another big one. I met her in '95, so it was a long time ago. And of course, she's been passed on since 2004. So, but for me, the fog. The reason the fog got me is it's that ghost story. It's I know they're not pirates. I mistakenly called them pirates one time in a video.
Yeah.
The lepers. I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like so. But I think I love the fact that it was shot around here. I mean, it was shot in Point Reyes and Point Reyes Station.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Point Reyes Station.
Yeah.
So I've gone to the lighthouse and walked down there and everything, which was really cool.
Yes.
And it's a pretty good trek back up. But it's just, I don't know, there's a mystique about it. I love everybody in it. I've been to the church where they shot the scenes at the end. So I was in Sierra Madre last year, and I went to where the church is. I didn't go inside, but I don't know. There's just something about it that I love. The Rob Bottin look for the Captain Blair. That the red eyes and just the fact that they're always silhouetted in the fog. And I like the whole story of the town that wronged these people and must die. And I just love the fog effects that they did. Everything about that film is creepy. The score is fantastic. I mean, I listened to it when we were driving to Point Reyes Station, and it just has that, I don't know, the things about John Carpenter's score, same thing with Harry Manfredini, is they evoke so much atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And it's a film that still to this day, I think the thing that hooked me as a kid was when Adrienne Barbeau's son in it is, they have the woman watching him, and as the pirates or the lepers are breaking through the door and she gets pulled out, that always bothered me. I don't know why, because she was an old woman, and I thought about my grandmother, and that scene always really bothers me. And the fact that you never really see the ghosts very well, they're always silhouetted, and it's just the eyes that you see, or the way that, and Tommy Lee Wallace was actually one of them, which is really crazy. Yeah, just like he talked about it in one of the Thing with Two Heads podcasts recently about how they did the effects and how some parts of the film didn't work. So him and John Carpenter did some new shots for it of, kind of close-ups and things like that. So I don't know, just again, going off a little bit on a tangent, but there's just everything about the film works. So I think the things that's always fascinating, anything that was shot around where I live has always really been fascinating. Like they filmed a movie here, that's the as a kid, but just watching that film from the first time I saw it and every time I revisit it, it's just there's a haunting element to it, and I think it's just that all the factors work. You have the fantastic cast, great acting, you have characters that you can get behind. Yes, the relationship with
with Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis, and that's so small, for me. But
we just, Tom Atkins is a Mac. I mean, we just have to admit that. That's how he got Stacy Wilkin in Halloween 3 too. So
yes, exactly, right.
He was a Mac.
He's a great guy too in real life. Adrienne Barbeau is a sweetheart too. So it's like
we got a chance to meet Adrienne Barbeau. I did. Morris, were you there when I met?
Yeah, WonderCon.
Yeah. I got a chance to meet her. Sat there and talked with her. We talked a little bit about movies. We talked a little John Carpenter. She was the nicest lady. She was so sweet. Tom Atkins, we keep wishing that he would somehow come close to us here. Yeah. He's definitely on our bucket list, at least for mine, to meet and so I mean, the fact that you met him is pretty damn cool.
And he was apparently a side note. I went on the Sunday. They had it. That was when Sinister was starting to do the 2 shows. So they had the summer show. That was the first year they did a summer event. And then they were also going to do the October one, which was the staple. They had done the October one the 2 prior. And the way that they had, I guess, the autograph tables is that if you've been to the Stockton Arena, they have like 2 levels to it. And I guess all of the vendors were down on the floor and all of the people doing the autographs were up in the top area. And I guess Tom Atkins didn't like that because he couldn't see everybody. And I guess not a lot of people were going up that way because all the vendors were down on the bottom. So the Sunday they moved everybody down to the bottom to the bottom area. So you had the autographs and the vendors and the people doing the signings were kind of on the sides and all the vendors were in the middle. And I just remember somebody saying, "Oh, he's kind of in a bad mood today." And I'm like, "Oh, well, it's like, I have to meet. He's, one of my, the bucket list people to meet."
Yeah.
And I just have a different way of going up to people. I just go up and say, "So nice to meet you. Thank you for my awesome childhood, you being in these movies." And he and I struck up a conversation. I talked to him about meeting Adrienne when she put out her biography, and she was starting to do this. She had done this book called, I think it was called Hollywood Vampires. And I was talking about meeting her in 2008. And he's like, "Oh yeah, Adrienne and I." And he said, "I remember because they were from the same area. They're both from Pittsburgh, I believe."
Oh, okay.
And, he was talking about her and we got a good conversation going, and he couldn't have been a sweeter man in my opinion, and it was just a meeting one of your heroes, and he turns out to be an amazing guy, and he's getting up there. I think he's almost 85, so it's like he's he was a complete sweetheart. So when I met him he was 80, so it's like you wouldn't it was a really great experience.
I keep wishing he's going to get here, and then I'm like, if he is close to 85, it's like it could be tough for him to travel and fly, and it's like, do I have to go to one of these, like, I think there's that one in Texas,
Texas Frightmare.
Texas Fright. I know there's a few, spread out throughout the country, and it's like I may have to go to one of these just to meet him, because I'd love to meet him. And so, and maybe one of these days we get a chance,
like Son of Monster Palooza or one of those things.
Something, So, all right. So my number one, I mean, this might be a no-brainer. My number one is The Shining. I think The Shining for most people would be their number one if you're doing a top 5 of 1980. Look. We've done an episode on it, so we've talked a lot about it. I can't really say more than what I already have said about the film. I think it's just it is a masterpiece. It's a classic, again, for a reason. I'll go briefly on it. The acting is, it's phenomenal. Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall kill it. I mean, hell, even Danny Lloyd is pretty damn good. And so, the music is just like Morris was saying earlier. It literally starts at the beginning, and it's like a gut punch, right? That nothing good is going to happen here, and it just sets the tone for the entire film. The camera work is phenomenal. I think I talked about this in our episode, is when Danny is riding his little big wheel, and as he's riding throughout, the hotel, and it goes from carpet to floor, and then going through the corners and stuff, and it's just a brilliant shot for me. Then when he finally comes around the corner to see the twins, they're supposed to be twins, but and then it's just like, oh man, and it's just, I could talk all day on it. There's so many different layers to this film that I don't even know if we tried to do it in an episode, and we did the best we could, but I mean, you could almost do like A, B, C, and D and just keep talking about different things. And so for number one for me would be The Shining. And I'll leave it at that, because again, we could talk all day long on it. So, and now I am very interested, because I don't see Morris's list. I have an idea, and I'll say whether I was right or not. I have an idea, but I'm just curious. I
did screw up, and I want to say that I mentioned that it was an honorable mention. I totally shouldn't have said that.
So it is your number one.
Yeah.
Now okay. So go ahead. Drum roll.
Maniac.
Maniac is your number one.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you said Fade to Black was your honorable mention and maybe another one. I don't know if you did say Maniac as your honorable mention.
Did I? Because I was jotting off some, and I thought I mentioned Maniac, and then when I said it, I'm like, I was biting my tongue. I'm like, oh, I should have.
No, you're number one.
Yeah.
I am not surprised it's on your top 5. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm a little shocked it's your number one.
Yeah.
Go for it. Tell me what you got,
Well,
man.
it could have swapped places with the Changeling, but
Wow.
yeah, but just over the years, and believe me, when I first saw the movie, oh god, it was one of those, you seeing those covers in the mom and pop stores.
Oh yeah.
And it was one of those like, again, it's like, I'll never see that. That looks gross. Woman's, it looks like he has woman's hair in his hand. He like must have ripped her hair off. Little I know that he scalped her and cut it off.
Yeah.
But over the years, it's really kind of grown on me as a movie from that year. The more I watch it, and believe me, I don't have like I think the 4K that came out with Blue Underground. I just have the Blu-ray, and but I really. I love it because it's a different kind of movie, and I wouldn't really call it a slasher. I think it's more of it's kind of like a character study, almost like something in the vein of like if we were to follow Norman Bates, and see what operated with him. It's kind of like another way of looking at the killer, because you're kind of and believe me, I love the Elijah Wood.
It was a really good remake.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I did watch that, and I thought it was pretty good because I'm
Yeah.
not a huge fan of the remakes. I've said it a million times, but that wasn't
they
bad.
did something different.
It wasn't bad. Yeah, they did something different. Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool.
But Joe Spinell is just he's greasy. He's he's
very-
remarkable in his role. He was a really good actor. Just seeing him in the different things that were even more popular, like Rocky, I really like the movie. I mean, it's one that the more I watch it, the more it grows on me, and like I could have flip flopped it, like you said, flip flopped. With yours,
it's really hard. Yeah.
But yeah, Maniac.
Maniac is your number one.
And maybe next week it'll be Changeling number 1, Maniac number 2.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough, man. Because we could rotate. I could rotate a lot of these, except for Mother's Day. I mean, Mother's Day would be my 5, but I could easily move the Fog all the way up. I can move the Change. I mean, any of these, honestly. All right, Ben, you're number 1. What do you got?
It's same as yours, my friend. It's The Shining.
The Shining. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just it's one that I didn't see until way later. Like I said, the commercials freaked me out as a kid, and I remember it was on cable television. I remember seeing the end of it and not really getting it. I think it was just, it was creepy, but it just was one of those ones that I didn't really see again. And it wasn't one that I rented as a kid. It wasn't one that I wanted. Jack Nicholson really freaked me out as a kid. I became a fan of him I think once he did Batman, I think then I started to warm to him as an actor, and I started seeing more things. I had seen him in other movies, like I had seen Prizzi's Honor, I had seen Terms of Endearment, but it wasn't until Batman came out that I really started to get into, his work. And I remember reading the book. I actually read the book completely. I was sort of flipping through it. I had it, but I didn't really read it in full until the late 90s. But they aired The Shining in 1995 on, I think it was aired on, it wasn't on Home Box Office or Showtime. It was on like maybe Channel 2 or something. They aired it, but they aired it and they didn't really edit it very much. But I was able to watch it, and I just really got into it again. I think it's that opening, the music, the atmosphere, the slow drive to the Overlook Hotel, the interview, just the little things in it that just sort of make everything seem a little bit off. there's just something about it that just really got to me, and it didn't have to be something jumping out at you. It didn't have to be a monster or a ghost. It was just that location they were in, and how you kind of, I mean, the biggest complaint that King ever had against Kubrick was the fact that Jack Nicholson came off as insane from frame one. As soon as you feel like this stable man, whereas in the book and even the McGarris miniseries from '97, it's a slow descent. It's a man that's had his demons, that's made his mistakes, that's trying to fix his life by and that's a slow burn in terms of him becoming unstable. Whereas you can tell Jack Nicholson cannot stand his wife, cannot stand his child. There's just something, he's at the end of his rope. He's not in a good place.
No, he's not.
And yes, you see him slowly get a little more insane looking as the movie goes. But I think that's what, I don't know. I don't think enough credit is given to Shelley Duvall. That's one thing.
Yeah.
There's so many people that write her off as this shrieky woman throughout the film. And, she's a woman of abuse. She's a woman that's in a situation that is so uncomfortable and it's like walking on eggshells, and she's trying to keep the peace and this guy's already dislocated her son's shoulder. It's like, she's trying to just keep everything at bay and not antagonize him to the point where he'll be violent again. And you see that in scenes like where she comes into the room when he's working and says, "Hey, weatherman says it's going to snow later." And he's like, "What do you want me to do about it?" And you just see that, just how she's like, "Oh, come on, don't be so grouchy." And you just see him start to unravel, and you just see how quickly it can escalate. And I think that's the brilliance of not only the script, but the acting. Like I said, I could gush about the film forever. I mean, I love, you just feel like you're isolated with them, and what would you do in this situation? And these little things that they pepper into it, like the woman in the bathtub and things like that.
Oh no, absolutely.
It's so well done. The music, the color scheme that they use, the hedge maze, because they couldn't do the topiary that's in the book. And I think Danny Lloyd is great. I'd love that they cast an actor named Danny to play the character Danny, because the whole thing was that Kubrick did not want this boy to know that he was in a horror film, and he didn't know for years in a horror film. I love Lloyd the bartender, the actor. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, just passed away recently.
Joe Turkel.
Joe Turkel, thank you. I don't know. There's just there's nothing about, and I know that there's a lot of people that, and I love the book, and I actually have things about the miniseries that came out that McGarris did that I enjoy. Again, it was for television. Nothing will ever compete with this, because this is, even though it used the blueprint of King's book, as something to build off of. Kubrick kind of took it in a different direction in some aspects, but it still works. And I think that that's the brilliance of the film. It's like every time you watch it, you discover something new.
That's exactly it. Because I did, watching it more recently, and I think as I was younger, Shelley Duvall did annoy me a little bit, right? Because you're looking at through a kind of like a younger lens, and as you get older, you appreciate more, and you see all the layers and the substance to this, because there are so many layers in this, and then little things that Kubrick would purposely do throughout the film,
tortured her.
Tormented her. Sure, for Shelley Duvall, but I'm just saying as a whole, like little things that we. And again, it's in the episode that we did, but it's like, he did everything on purpose. So if there was a chair behind Jack Nicholson, and then 2 seconds later it's gone and then it's back again, there's a reason, because Kubrick he was a brilliant filmmaker. He always wanted to make you feel uneasy, and what's real and what's not real, and and that was the brilliance of him. And now he put his actors through hell, especially Shelley Duvall in this film, but I mean, it obviously came out when the movie was all said and done. I mean, it's just,
he wanted to exhaust them mentally. I think that's like I think the door where Jack breaks through the door, I think that was 50 takes for him to break through that door. the bathroom door with the axe. And you see, if you watch Vivian Kubrick's documentary on the making of it, which is amazing because it was like, I think it's the only documented telling of Kubrick behind the scenes, and you just see what the actors are going through with regards to their lines, and how Shelley Duvall was like pulling hair out because she said she was so stressed out and she fainted, and they get into an altercation when she doesn't hear the call. And I mean, there's so many things about that. You just see like how Jack Nicholson was kind of handled more with kid gloves, and how Shelley was kind of put through, to make her, to almost put her into that state that she's in as Wendy in real life.
Yeah.
I think that's, again, I mean, you could say things about how that was done, but you watch that film and there's nothing that seems false. Everything seems authentic. And I think it's because of some of the little ways that Kubrick went around making that film.
Yeah, from their perspective, I'm sure it was tough. I mean, I'm sure it was tough, but then obviously the end result is this, this masterpiece, and so. But yeah, I'm sure they went through hell going through it. It's more so Shelley Duvall. I did hear. I think there's a scene with Scatman Crothers where I think Kubrick made him do a take 100-something times.
Yeah,
and so and there's, but I think a lot of stuff happens that we find out about later. I can't think of it offhand, but I know there was I don't know, maybe it was the I can't remember, but when they're firing a shot, firing a gun or whatever the hell it is. William Friedkin did in The Exorcist. And so I don't think you can get away with that stuff now.
Oh no.
But they sure did back then, and then you find out. Yeah.
It's like, I think if you tried that now, it'd be everywhere.
Oh, everywhere. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it would ruin the career of whoever. And it's just like,
and they'd be canceled.
So, yeah. But, man. Well, shit, that was cool, man. That top. Oh, before I forget, I want to do, Darren couldn't make the episode, but his top 5. I'll go really quick. Number 5, Maniac.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Number 4, The Fog. Number 3, The Changeling. Number 2, Friday the 13th. And number 1, The Shining. The Shining is like his
one of his favorites. Yeah,
one of his favorite, if not the favorite. But yeah, I wanted to throw that in before I forgot. And hey, Ben, before we let you go, where can people find you? Like on Instagram, YouTube, and all that stuff.
Yeah, YouTube, it's just BoogeyMan Ben. Been doing it. I'm actually going to be hitting 12 years in September.
Nice.
So I'm doing it for quite a while. But yeah, I'm on there on YouTube and Instagram. I have Facebook, but I more prefer Instagram just because I just think it's a little bit more convenient, and I'm trying to get away from Facebook a little bit. But Instagram, same thing, BoogeyMan Ben. Okay. And I've been doing quite a bit of, I'm trying to do things a little differently this year, but I'm doing a lot more on location stuff. I have some that I'm working on right now, and planning to do a ranking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. Nice. And then I'm doing one. I have a Patreon page that I just set up, and I just did it just because I ran into some issues with copyright stuff. It was just because I was using a scene for a on-location video, which was silly. But set up the Patreon if you want to donate. That's cool. But I do this for fun. I do it for free because that's just the way I'm built. But I'm my patron who I have one patron now, my friend Celeste. She's awesome, and I am doing a top 10 horror movie heroes and heroines. So I thought
cool.
So I'm going to be working on that. I'm trying to get away from just doing movie reviews. I feel like there's enough people on YouTube doing movie reviews.
Like
so
us?
Just kidding. Not like dig or anything. It's just that I've never been comfortable doing it, and I kind of felt like I did it in the beginning just because I didn't want, if I didn't have something to showcase, I'm like, well, what else can I talk about? Yeah. And then I started saying, there's some other things I can try and, just see if people are interested. So, but I did see Nope, and I did see, a few horror films recently. I finally did a review of The Black Phone. So I am still, every once in a while, but I'm just trying to do a couple of different things.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, if you can, do it.
I do have to ask Ben, being that you grew up in the Bay Area and you watched Channel 2 as well, do you remember I think it was like a Saturday afternoon that they broadcast on Channel 2 Friday the 13th, the first one and part 2 on a Saturday afternoon, probably in 81, maybe probably more like 82 before the third one came out. And they were pretty much uncut.
Oh, anything out?
Do you remember that?
Oh, I don't, because at that time I really got into Friday the 13th. I'd seen part 2, and I think there was this thing that I can't remember if it was Showtime or HBO, but I remember they did they would show a bunch of horror movies all together. And I remember they showed so this had to have been like 1983.
Okay.
I think they showed part 2, and they showed like The Thing, because The Thing came out in 82. So it's like they showed a bunch of them. And that was the first time I saw part 2. And then I really got into Jason after seeing part 3. And I don't think I saw that one until 1984.
Okay.
And I remember in 1984, that's when Final Chapter came out. So I think they were starting to show part 3 on cable. And then I really got into it after that. So,
Nice.
but earlier than that, Friday the 13th was kind of like a small blip for me.
Okay.
You know, my dad, you can't watch this movie if someone gets their head cut off. So that was
That's funny.
I
like
love
those
it.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, I was shocked to see it on Channel 2, and like I said, it was virtually uncut. There except for maybe the nudity and but there was some some blood, and I was like, wow, Saturday afternoon, and I taped it. I taped them back to back.
That's funny.
And I remember our little VCRs. It was a top loader. It had one of the corded remotes.
Oh yeah.
And I was like pausing it through the commercials and then unpausing it when the commercials.
Yeah, that's funny.
When it came back.
That's hilarious. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, Ben. Hey, man, we really, really super duper appreciate you coming on out. It was an honor for us to have you on. We would definitely like to have you on again. You know, I know your schedule's probably pretty busy, but you know, we'll keep in touch, and then you know, when time permits, we'd love to have you back out, man.
Yes, man.
Oh, I'd love it. Thank you so much. It's been an honor, Rick. Thank you. You and Morris, great. I hope one day I get to speak with Darren. I'd love to talk to all of you guys, and anytime, just reach out. I mean, like I said, I'll promote that I'm gonna, if you guys let me know when the episode goes up, I'll
we will. Absolutely, yeah. But before we put this one up, I'll let you know, and you know, we'll let people know that it's coming out, that you're going to be on there, and we hadn't done a top whatever before, so this was the first one, and it just made sense to start with 1980 because in my mind, I believe. I think the 80s was probably the best decade, but I guess maybe I'm partial because I grew up in the 80s, and I'm sure 70s are great too. Don't get me wrong, but anyways, well, thanks again, man.
Thank you, Ben.
And we'll talk soon. And everyone out there who listened to us ramble for this top 5, we appreciate it. And everyone, take care.
Bye now.
Thank you, guys.
You listened all the way to the end. We appreciate that. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ear for Fear Podcast, Twitter at Ear for Fear, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Ear for Fear Podcast. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There we list news and events. We're available on all the main platforms, so make sure you tell a friend. We hope you come back and get an earful.